By the time Manifest Destiny reached the shores of the Pacific, the pattern was already familiar. Take land, build quickly, and forget what was here before. But here, in the misty inlets of the Puget Sound, the newcomers didn't arrive with guns drawn, at least not at first. The settlers came to the natives as traders. Chief Seattle, originally pronounced Seattle, saw opportunity here. He welcomed the newcomers, hoping their tools, weapons, and wealth would benefit his people, the Duwamish. He encouraged the women of his tribe to marry white men as well. What he hoped for was a shared future with the Americans, and maybe even an elevated role in the new world they could build together. But America doesn't share, nor does it elevate. It sucks the life out of you and then tosses you aside. Ultimately, the newcomers arrived hungry for timber, land, and control. Treaties like the one drawn at Point Elliott in 1855 were signed, then ignored. Native communities were displaced, their names and stories overwritten by street grids and shipping ports, and their access to the natural resources they lived on denied at gunpoint. Chief Seattle's strategy of cooperation, once praised by other tribes, soon began to look like surrender. Natives saw the white man's contracts for the false promises they were, and they fought back. When the Battle of Seattle broke out in 1856, many called the chief a traitor. He took the wrong side. Throughout the rest of the Puget Sound War, Seattle's people worked in sawmills under settler protection, while white militias were raised to fight off tribes who had once been their friends. Then the army arrived, and tribal longhouses were burned to the ground. The chief himself even adopted the colonizers' religion. Seattle took on the Christian name of Noah. Noah then watched as his world began to quickly change in front of him. As he aged and his world receded into the smoky interior of a cabin, everything changed. After the war, white people feared the remaining natives and deprecated their culture. They outlawed traditional practices and gatherings, and in 1865, they made it illegal for the tribe to reside within town limits. As the city grew, the Duwamish were pushed further from their homeland, and new citizens petitioned the government specifically not to create a reservation for them. The city still bears Chief Seattle's birth name, but I wouldn't mistake that for respect for the peoples of the past. It's just an artifact from a brief period of cooperation. The natural water's edge that had once been lined with captivating carved canoes was transformed into a loud and industrious port. And the sound was filled with shit and sawdust. The city grew from greed, and it would burn from it too. White people built their shops, streets, and homes right here at sea level, and they would quickly come to regret it. The streets were constantly covered in mud and muck and flooded regularly. The settlers were not able to construct a public toilet in the town square without having the shit ooze out of the ground in pipes at high tide. But they kept trying. In June of 1889, a fire broke out in a small shop. A pot of hot glue boiled over onto the floor. The floor was covered in wood chips that went up in flames, and then the neighboring buildings went up in flames too. Despite its reputation for relentless flooding, the town's tides were absent on that summer day, so the fire spiraled out of control. Having been built entirely out of wood, the whole town center became a raging fireball. It took a week to control and extinguish the fire, which ended up claiming 25 city blocks. Imagine the square miles of wet muck and ash that would have festered for weeks. They say the guy who accidentally started the fire slipped out of town and was never heard from again. Shit, I'd make sure I was never heard from again either. Some of the ashes would be buried forever, as the city made the unique decision to raise the entirety of Pioneer Square, but build it out of stone this time. Of course, lifting an entire public square would take a long time. Business owners didn't have a decade to wait for the city to build the new roads and sidewalks. Many chose to immediately rebuild their shops where the old ones had stood, among the charred remains of the old square. As the new road and sidewalks were built above them, the former Pioneer Square plunged into darkness. For a time, The sidewalks here were interrupted by ladders and staircases, ensuring access to the streets as well as the shops below. Many businesses stayed put as the city built over them, and willingly or not, they became part of the new subterranean Seattle. The spaces created underneath the new roads served as a sort of drainage system to deal with the tides that had plagued the city for so long. But construction crews also began filling in these spaces with trash and waste. Maybe they continued to think that the sea and the tides would wash away their garbage like it washed away their shit. Maybe they thought they could forget about it. As the city tried to rebuild above ground, the world below began to fester. And then the rats came. Rats stowed on ships coming from San Francisco and beyond landed at the city's port and quickly conquered the new underground. All the trash they could eat and hardly any humans around to stop them. It was rat nirvana. In 1907, a case of the bubonic plague forced the city to rethink its subterranean corridor for the sake of public health. Shops relocated to the new street level, and sidewalks would be fully sealed off. Just like that, the underground disappeared beneath the surface, mandated to be forgotten forever and taken over by rats. Up above, life moved on. When white people first arrived in the Pacific Northwest, they were awestruck by the abstract wooden carvings that towered over them. They had never seen any art like this. Totem poles are meant to memorialize those who came before you and honor your people's history. But I doubt that the settlers cared very much for that part. After all, they rejected the people who produced them, yet adopted their art and iconography as symbols of the growing city. The totem pole first put here in 1899 was actually stolen from a Tlingit village far away in Alaska and was gifted to the city of Seattle to promote tourism. They tore it out of the ground and tribal community that produced it, shipped it across waters they now claim sovereignty over, and put it on display in a manufactured place devoid of any spiritual meaning. Here it stood for nearly 40 years until an arsonist seriously damaged it. They stuffed newspapers into the mouths of one of the ancestors and then lit it on fire. And that almost sounds poetic. Part of me wonders if it would have been better to have left it here in that state, even after it was burnt to a crisp. That would have more accurately reflected the relationship between the native peoples of this land and those who came to crush and consume them. But that would never happen, and the settlers continually chose to commodify and commercialize native culture. The city had to clean things up for display, so a shiny new replica totem pole was put here in 1940. Don't be fooled. It's not preservation. It's a prop. It's performance. We suffer from a plague of forgetting, paraded as tribute. It was once natives on canoes who ruled these shores, and then it was loggers and fishermen and gold miners who built the streets. Now it looks like tech workers have claimed the land, and the Amazon Corporation has assumed the new role of chief. It makes me wonder what Amazon's Christian name is. Today, if you want, you can pay a tour service to take you underground on a supervised visit. After decades of being off limits, sections of the former Pioneer Square were cleaned out for the sake of selling tickets to tour groups. History has become a product. It's easy to pave over the past, and even easier to sell it back to us as entertainment. But beneath every sidewalk and beneath every monument, there's a story still trying to breathe. I bet the same is true in your city. You just have to be willing to look.